everyone. I'm Katie Daryl, and today we are at home and social with the six-time Grammy nominated Yola. Congratulations and welcome.
Hey, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Well, six nominations. That's fantastic. And we're going to talk all about that. But I want to go backwards a little bit. I mean, this is the second year that the Grammys have acknowledged you and thrown these noms at you. And so people like me get to say Grammy nominated. Before you got that first Grammy nom, what did people say? How did they introduce you?
Oh, goodness. I think people kind of attributed a number of monikers to me because they didn't know how to describe me. They put me, I was once kind of called Queen of Country Soul, and then genre fluid was a thing that they talked, once they got an idea that I wasn't going to be just in a genre or two. I was going to be a great mixer of genres and talking about the connective tissue between things. That was what they described me as. I think I started out paying a lot of time and a lot of deference to country music, to soul music, to classic pop music on my first record, and a little classic rock music on my first record. And then, I opened up to maybe slightly more soul music, a little disco, a little more rock. And so I'm broadening, but it's all still there. You know,
I do love that phrase, genre fluid. I mean, I really am digging it. It's really cool. It does describe what's going on. You are touching on so many sounds, and you yourself just mentioned the disco, and I love discos.
Oh, good.
Oh, that Donna Summer album. We had it on an 8-track and did a family vacation when I was about 4 years old, driving in a van, just listening to it on the radio. Wow. And I just loved it. And so when I first started listening to your music and even knew that you had an inkling of affection towards disco, I was drawn to you. What do you love about disco?
Well, I've got a bit of a mission. I'm kind of obsessed with time. I have a love for the drummer James Gadson. And every time, I didn't realize how much of a love I had for this drummer until I was looking for drummers for the second record. And I went through some of my favorite records, and I was I wonder who's all my favorite songs, and just looking at who the session players were. And 9.5 times out of 10, it was James Gadson. And I didn't even know who was playing on some of these songs. I'd just be oh. And I went through so many, after a while, I forgot the songs that I was even looking at, and I just heard a certain feel and a certain kind of grooviness to it. And he was quite prevalent in the recording of a lot of soul music and a lot of disco of the era. And I think that must have programmed me in some way. I really love groove. And so even when I'm doing something that's a little more down tempo, I'm trying to embody all of that with groove, with that kind of foundation I had in disco from my mother and my mother's record collection.
Well, as I said at the top of the show, you are 6-time Grammy nominated. This latest round, it's two, right? Because you had the 4 nominations back off of the 2019-2020. So 2 nominations, that's great. Also in similar categories as before. How did this nomination process feel compared to the first time? I mean, no one forgets the first, but second, probably still pretty sweet.
Yeah, in a weird way, I think it was more sweet. I think because with this record, I felt like I knew exactly what I wanted to do. Mm-hmm. I felt like the first record just happened, and this one was a real plan.
Let's talk about your growth and the strength and the power and being able to make bigger, bolder decisions because you've already proved yourself that first time. So tell me about the second album and some of the strong moves and decisions you made.
So I was speaking about drummers and my obsession with time. And so I was we can't start doing this record until we find the right drummer, because it has to be in this vein, and we can't fly. It was the middle of the pandemic, so we couldn't fly like an octogenarian across country to play on the record. So we had to find someone who, you know, was maybe younger. Mm-hmm. And, you know, maybe less at risk, less in that age range of like high risk.
You don't want to be known as the person who killed people, right?
No. Like, and that was a real conversation I think a lot of artists were having, which is a really weird conversation to have when making a record. Like, we don't want to kill our heroes, so let's not fly the old people very far. Like, let's just not do that. But it was, big decisions were as much like speaking on things that I maybe wasn't able to speak on for the first record because there was no one in the writership other than me that could relate. You know, like all the co-writers were out of Dan's Black Book and I didn't know anyone yet. I didn't live here. Right. I didn't have a place. I stayed with friends here. I stayed with multiple friends here. But I lived in the UK. And so I didn't really like have anyone. And so the kind of the ability to be able to choose writers of color was a really important thing. We got there. And that was one thing that was, you know, essential, especially to like the opening track. Me and Joy Aladakun wrote Barely Alive. And it was very much about our experience of like being a Black other, you know, and that idea of feeling isolated because you're Black and you chose to play the guitar and people mentally maybe haven't quite understood the relationship with Black women and the guitar.
Right.
Like, you know, like there's a little movie I'm in that should clear that up. But,
I want to talk about it. Can we talk about it?
Yeah, we can.
Oh my goodness. Okay. So for those of you just tuning in, I'm Katie Daryl. She's Yola. This is At Home and Social and Access TV, yada, yada, yada. She's nominated for a ton of Grammys. We are obsessed, but now I want to pivot and we got to talk about the Elvis Presley movie because you have been hired and you play Sister Rosetta Tharpe. Thank you. In this Elvis Presley movie, which, I mean, it has Tom Hanks in it. So we already know it's going to be amazing.
Well, exactly. Also, like, it's one of those things that people are maybe starting very kind of gradually to become aware of. Sister Rosetta Tharpe was the pioneer and inventor of rock and roll music.
Yeah.
Let's not beat around the bush. Let's not be coy or hedge our bets because people can be very coy and hedge betting when it comes to women inventing anything, let alone Black women. Yeah. And so I'm like, let's just clear this up.
I mean, it has been said that she influenced Eric Clapton. I mean, come on. People are like, oh, Eric Clapton's a god. And you want to be like, hey, but take a step back and look at the big picture.
She discovered Little Richard.
Really? I'm not sure I knew that.
These things are ridiculous.
Yeah.
It's like she had a night and everyone that became rock and roll went to that night. She was the matriarch of the entire scene. She was older. She was an elder. So all the kids were like obsessed with her. And Elvis grew up listening to her on the radio. He'd run home from school to listen to her. He was obsessed. B.B. King was obsessed with her. Everyone would go to Beale Street. They'd go to Club Handy. They'd go to her night, and their styles were influenced by everything she did. She was way decades ahead of the curve. Segregation really did away with the kind of the history book side of it. The idea of holding someone aloft as an inventor of something that has then proven to have value was something that wasn't desperately common until, things started kind of unifying, I suppose. And we just missed a bit a really insignificant bit where we could have held someone aloft for what they gave us. And so without her, we don't have Little Richard. Without Little Richard, we don't have Prince. Like, you think of like, without Prince, heaven knows how many artists we don't have. And then just tag that on to, you know, Ike Turner, tag that on to B.B. King, tag that on to Elvis, tag that on to all the people, you know, who were like early proponents of rock and roll, and everything that they created, rock music full stop, everything doesn't spin off without her shredding in that way, without distorting that amp in that way, without bending the strings. People didn't play like that. That was her and her alone. And that's what makes it a real honor to play her, because I just think it's a narrative that needs to be told. It's essential in American history and in the diasporadic history of the diaspora's effect on music.
Let's talk about acting, right? We know you as a musician, but now we're going to get to see this acting side of Yola. When you were on set, and there you are, you're playing Sister Rosetta Tharpe. Did you stay in character? Were you method, or did you keep that? I mean, that's a lot of energy to carry all day long. Did you come in and out of character?
I would exit character at great speed, mostly because I had to wear heels, and I don't really enjoy wearing heels. I don't mind wearing platforms that are pretty flat.
Sure.
But like, these had a little bit of tilt to them. I'm like, oh, I'm a desperate fan of that. And so it'll be like, they'll be like, cut. And I'd be like, get me out of these shows. And then my flip-flops would come, and I just pop my feet in and be like, oh, thank God for that. And they'd be like, okay, back in. And be like, and then look, get back into character. Then like, just, have to flip the switch and get good at flipping the switch.
Yeah.
You know? And so, but a part of that, like Baz said, that it was useful to combine a bit of yourself with the character so that it feels like it comes from somewhere, that it has a soul. And so, like, that was like a little bit of something that I carried with me. Yeah. The idea right the way through from, you know, when we were tracking the soundtrack, because we did that first, you know, and that was really my entrance to it, is that I used to do this replay job, or it's like sample replay, where you create samples from like way back records, and you've got to make them really precisely, and it's a super kind of anal job. And I was used to going into character to get the spirit of something. I've been doing that for, I don't know, 15 years. And then went into doing this and being Yola. But that skill it turned out to be useful. And he noticed that I was acting a bit in the booth. Right. And so I was in that idea of going in, transporting myself to the place because of that job. But then when you're doing that job, you've got to be able to flip out of your headset and analyze what you're doing to get close to the next take. And so I think that's what then affected my acting process. I would go in and I'd come out and I'd analyze, and I'd go back in and I'd do it again. I'd come out and I'd analyze. And you're not very aware when you're in it. But when you come out of it, you'll kind of just like, you'll try and process like retrospectively what you've done. And so that's a big part of my acting process, is this ability to flip the switch.
For those of you just joining us, I'm Katie Daryl. This is At Home and Social, and we are speaking with the 6-time Grammy nominated Yola. Best Americana Album, Stand For Myself. That is nominated this year. This is a hopeful album, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, it really is. It really wants to reach out, and it's I suppose it's principally about connection and wanting to connect. But it's also, and maybe in the very astutely linking on from what we were just talking about, and you noticed well this idea of like that I flipped some switches in this record as well. Yeah. I'm not, although I'm seeking to connect, I'm not seeking to connect come what may. I'm seeking to connect with people who are really actually seeking to connect back. And so we start in this place where I'm really isolated and nobody is willing to see me in my wholeness. They see their projection onto me more than they see actually what's going on and who I am. And then I start breaking down why that might be, if society is a great divider and that powers in society that divides us and makes us create tropes about each other, and then on the personal situations when you outgrow things and grow people and outgrow relationships, and then that will and that want to find people who see you and connect with them, and that process of how you do that within yourself. And so much of the middle of the album is about just love and about connection, about friendship, and about just being seen, and those moments where you realize you're being seen. And I felt like I'd written songs for other people in the past, for myself, and I'd never really processed this part of my life that had changed me from doormat Yola to the one that felt empowered. And it was an empowerment because I chose to recognize some traits in people that some people just aren't capable of seeing a dark-skinned woman lead or be a three-dimensional person.
Right.
You know, and that's really what this album deals with.
Talking about the visual of you and your music videos, they are on point. They are on brand. You watch one and you can go right into the next one and you feel like you're watching movies. The use of colors, are you in the think tank room coming up with the ideas, or are you being presented with the drawings and the sketches and this is what we think we want you to do?
The former. I'm all over every part. I was art director for all the artwork on the vinyl and on the CDs and on everything. And so every product that you'll get is like, I directed the art. We had obviously worked with Perry, who does all of our design. We had 3D people. We had loads of people working, making this stuff come to life. But I was artistic director, so that when it came into the movie, the kind of mini movies that I try and create, music videos, I wanted the artwork to bleed into the music videos. So if you get the vinyl and you look on the back of it, you'll see what I call the cloud shoot, which is me on a motorcycle because I'm a biker, and in a Truman Show environment. And like the way that I would escape the Truman Show, more than a boat, because I'm not desperately keen on deep water, even though it wasn't deep, would be a motorcycle.
Right.
And so that was like my exit of my personal Truman Show. And the idea is that the first Diamond Studded Shoes video is connected to that world, that kind of Truman Show.
Right.
You know, a world that's created that has just enough of the nice stuff that you like, but has some fatal flaws in it. Like the person you really connect with is not in this world and you're not allowed to connect with them under this paradigm. And that's really what Diamond Studded Shoes is about. It's inspired by the previous Prime Minister, Theresa May, and her austerity measures and just like whipping money from the poor to kind of line our own pockets and the rest of it. But it's that divide and conquer mentality that's been going on in England for longer than America's existed. And like, you know, as a United States model. And as a result of that, we are in this kind of same kind of paradigm of we're going to create realities that are only adjacent to the truth. And so that's what that song is about. And it goes, you know, it's not going to turn out fine if we just, you know, like, oh, you know, it's what it is. Like, we're going to have to do something about that.
Yeah.
Like, have to fight the programming of separation and division and use our collective power. That's just all we can do. And like the reason they put so much stock into dividing us is because it pays to a very small number of pockets.
The album is called Stand for Myself. Perfect title, I think. Artwork is gorgeous. Purple hair is fantastic. Everything feels great about what you're doing right now, Yola. So congratulations on the 2 Grammy nominations this year, but the 6 in total. And we look forward to seeing what you have to deliver to us later on in the year as well.
Thank you so much for having me.
Hey there, thanks for watching Access TV. Subscribe, follow, like, and do all the good stuff. And make sure you leave a comment below. I don't know, just let us know what your favorite Access TV show is, or who your favorite bands are, and what artists you're into, or just say hi, man. I like to be told hi. We love hearing from you. That's the point, all right? Keep it coming.